Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the home of the Liberty Bell, all things Benjamin Franklin, the Philadelphia Eagles, prestigious universities, and one of the most dangerous, dated, and poor excuses of a freeway on the entire East Coast. That freeway is none other than Interstate 76, the Schuylkill Expressway. On my trip to the Northeast, I was quite excited to explore the roadway networks of these older, more densely populated cities. I wanted to see just how the engineers were able to design and fit them into such places and experience in person how well or how poorly they worked on the user end. In particular, this wacky interchange with I-95 and I-76 in Philadelphia. Though I consider Baltimore to be more like a northeastern city than a southern one, Philadelphia is the first major city along the I-95 corridor that most people can universally agree on as being a northern city. While I-95 in Philadelphia has all the bells and whistles one might expect from a modern highway, the Schuylkill, which carries I-76, not so much. It's almost as if it were frozen in time with some of the dated design elements, and it's no coincidence that it's the most dangerous highway in the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania officials are well aware of this, but not much has been done to fix it. On this video, we'll find out why. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you love it, and let's take a trip to Philadelphia. So what exactly is the Schuylkill Expressway? The Schuylkill Expressway is the primary east-west interstate for the Philadelphia region. It carries Interstate 76 from the Walt Whitman Bridge as you enter from New Jersey. In Philadelphia, it follows the Schuylkill River, for which it is named, westward through the city and into its suburbs before ending at the Pennsylvania Turnpike in King of Prussia, at which point I-76 continues west through the state along that roadway. The expressway actually predates the interstate highway system and was constructed between 1949 and 1959. For much of its length, the Schuylkill is only 4 lanes for the main through travel lanes and contains many substandard, outdated, and dangerous design elements. You'll find it all along this highway. Left exits, narrow lanes, limited merging areas, and insane congestion, as it is also the busiest highway in all of Pennsylvania. A truly wonderful recipe for the disaster that it has become today. So what exactly makes this road so dangerous? Oh, let us count the ways. The main issue is the outdated design elements. Recall that it was designed in the 1940s, and the safety standards back then were largely inferior to what you would expect on a modern interstate highway. One of the first is the narrow lanes. The standard lane width on an interstate highway is 12 feet. However, driving on the Schuylkill, I could tell that several portions of the highway were smaller. The problem with these narrow lanes is that they decrease speed, adding to congestion, and also can lead to more fatal crashes as many trucks also use this highway. Next, you will find left exits. In the US, we drive on the right side of the roadway, and the standards for the interstate highway system is that right exits are to be used when practical. The left lane is typically reserved for faster moving vehicles and passing. So when you have a situation of left exits, you'll get vehicles moving into the left lane in anticipation for their upcoming exit, in turn slowing down the lane that is intended for faster moving vehicles. The left side exits increase the amount of stop and go traffic as drivers adjust to the merging vehicles on the faster side of the roadway. This is already devastating to traffic flow on interstates that otherwise are up to standard, but with the Schuylkill already being an inferior nightmare of design with only 4 lanes, it creates a perfect disaster of traffic flow along the roadway. You have slower moving traffic and trucks in the right lane, but when these left exits appear, you also get slower moving traffic in the left lane, leaving through traffic with nowhere to go but instead to stop and go as people switch and crisscross lanes trying to get ahead. So it's no surprise that the majority of the crashes on this highway are rear-end collisions. The Schuylkill makes the Cross Bronx Expressway look like a great design in comparison. Penn DOT says that there are 400 to 500 crashes on I-76 per year, mainly rear-end ones. Many have begun to commonly call these left merge areas merge or die. Quite appropriate, I might say. The next is the narrow shoulders. The issue with narrow shoulders goes without saying. If a vehicle breaks down or there's a wreck on the Schuylkill, then everyone is going to feel it. The narrow shoulders leave nowhere to go for even the most minor of fender benders. They also make it difficult for emergency vehicles to navigate to the scene of an accident in order to clean things up. If there's a wreck on this roadway, well, let's just say it's going to be a while. This next one isn't inherently dangerous to you as a driver, but it is dangerous to your vehicle, and that's the condition of the roadway itself. The Schuylkill is cited for seemingly always being under construction somewhere. Well, I couldn't tell when I was there. In addition to the nickname the Schuylkill Expressway, I would say that the name Pothole Parkway would also be fitting. This roadway is rough, and I mean bad. Basically from US 1 Roosevelt Boulevard on east, it is a pothole, cracked pavement, tire-eating mess. It's not until you approach the Walt Whitman Bridge where things finally begin to smooth out again. If you go across the bridge and continue into New Jersey, then you feel the relief of having survived the Schuylkill as you finally drive on the modern, well-maintained roadway on that side of the Delaware River. To add insult to injury, you have to pay a toll to drive from a well-built I-76 in New Jersey onto this huge drop-off in roadway quality. Now, with all that good old 1940s design, the biggest ingredient to complete this disaster that is the Schuylkill is the traffic. In Philadelphia, over 215,000 vehicles use this highway per day, and over 130,000 use it in neighboring Montgomery County. This makes it the busiest highway in the entire state of Pennsylvania, yet it has probably the most constrained and outdated design in the entire state. For comparison, the section in Philadelphia is handling more vehicles than the vastly superior, more modern I-95 that traverses through the area. So all in all, when you put this many vehicles in 2023 on a road that was built to handle the 1960s, you get one of the most deadly highways in America. One of its redeeming qualities, I must say, are the stunning views of the Philadelphia skyline headed in the westbound direction. Now that we understand the ancient design of the Schuylkill, let's take a look at what Pennsylvania has done in an attempt to address it. Surely officials in the area are well aware of these issues with the roadway, so what ideas have they come up with to try and improve safety here? Well, naturally, the first thing one would think is, why didn't they just widen it to meet modern standards? The biggest reason, geography. Philadelphia is a city that was developed before the car, and the original design of the Schuylkill squeezed the main portion of it between a rail line and the Schuylkill River. Shortly after completion, it was already realized that the Schuylkill and its many substandard design elements and compromises would not be able to handle the traffic load that was coming in the near future. Any attempt at widening the roadway to update these elements would be difficult, expensive, and politically unpopular. So an alternate expressway was proposed. This expressway was called the Schuylkill Expressway. It was to run along the opposite side of the Schuylkill River on its east bank, parallel to the Schuylkill Expressway between Plymouth meeting to an interchange with I-76 where it crosses the Schuylkill River. The plans for this highway were canceled in the 1960s once Kelly Drive was designated as a scenic route. In 1969, another plan to build a shortened version of this highway from Plymouth meeting to the proposed 10-mile loop at the end of the Philadelphia city limits was also canceled due to opposition. You can see on this map a rough sketch of where these expressways were supposed to be. It appears that the freeway network for the metro was designed with anticipation that these roadways would share the travel demand. However, after all the cancellations and the incomplete network, I-76 was left to carry the might of Philadelphia's east-west commuters with no real alternative routes. In 1976, a proposal to widen the entire roadway to 8 lanes was introduced for the U.S. bicentennial. But after local opposition, this plan was struck down and a smaller version was eventually built that widened the section through Fairmount Park to 6 lanes. By the 1980s, Penn DOT was receiving several lawsuits along with a high tally of deaths and property damage from the expressway. They came up with a plan called the Schuylkill Squeeze, in which they improved many design elements on the highway to include rebuilding bridges, widening shoulders, and installing the Jersey barrier between the median that we see today. This was a modest improvement, but it was the equivalent of using a couple of band-aids to treat your bullet wound. Later, Pennsylvania House Speaker John Purcell proposed a double-decker option for not only I-76, but also I-95. The governor at the time was also on board with this project, but it never came to fruition, likely due to funding. So from the 1980s up until around 2020, the Schuylkill remained largely unchanged, and the traffic counts and the bodies continue to pile up. But as conditions have continued to deteriorate, culminating in a catastrophic accident where a line of cars that were stopped from a previous accident and an 18-wheeler crashed right into that line of cars. It involved 12 vehicles, left 3 dead and 9 injured, among other property damage. So recently, Penn DOT has unveiled a strategic plan for improving the corridor. This plan takes a multi-pronged approach by improving roads, rail, and trails along the corridor. Penn DOT Secretary Leslie S. Richards said that the Transportation Management Plan includes several components, including the deployment of active traffic management or ATM technologies on I-76, expansion of public transit service along the Muyunuk-Norristown Regional Rail Line, the modernization of traffic signal systems along several roadways running parallel to the expressway, and potential trail improvements. In partnership with SEPTA, Penn DOT also plans to provide real-time transit information on electronic messaging signs along I-76 in conjunction with SEPTA's potential deployment of a smart parking pilot program at a new garage and station targeted to be built in Conshohocken near the existing rail station. The message board displays will inform motorists of transit station parking availability and real-time train departures and real-time train departure times to better inform citizens of transit travel options. The station will also provide bicycle storage facilities as the station is directly adjacent to the Schuylkill River Trail. Penn DOT also proposes to modernize traffic signals on several roads running parallel to I-76 between King of Prussia, Norristown, and Philadelphia to control signal operations in real time during incidents on the expressway. New signal systems, which will be owned and managed by Penn DOT, are targeted for Ridge Pike, Route 23, Sweetland Road, Route 320, US 202, South Gulf Road, Henderson Road, Fayette Street, Ridge Avenue, Henry Avenue, Belmont Avenue, and US 1/City Avenue. The new signals are expected to be installed in 2 to 4 years. On the expressway itself, Penn DOT has installed variable speed limit signs. These adjust the speed limit depending on conditions on the roadway. 55 miles per hour will be the peak speed limit you will see on these signs. These are actually already installed when I visited Philadelphia, so I can't say whether or not they have been effective at improving safety on the roadway, as I didn't have the displeasure of driving it before they were installed. There is also electronic signage involved that will alert drivers of upcoming crashes, congestion, or construction on the roadway so that they can drive more cautiously as they traverse these zones. Penn DOT hopes that this signage will cut down on the dangerous stop-and-go movements that cause so many rear-end collisions on the expressway. The next measure is part-time shoulder use lanes. This is used in locations where it would be too expensive or politically unpopular to expand roadways, and it allows cars to drive on the shoulder during peak travel times, using it as an additional lane. You may have already seen this in place in some locations. I've experienced them along US 1 in New Jersey. I-76 is planned to get these between the Valley Forge interchange and I-476, and on I-76 westbound between US 1 Roosevelt Boulevard and Belmont Avenue. Adjusting the roadway for part-time shoulder use is expected to cost $125 million and has not yet been implemented. Once more funding is available, Penn DOT wants to extend the part-time shoulder east of I-476. Additional strategies to complement the use of part-time shoulders include ramp metering, which most of you are familiar with, which involves signalized control of when cars can enter the roadway. Junction control, which will be the use of overhead electronic signs over travel lanes to regulate or close lanes at merge areas to improve traffic flow at high volume interchanges. Dynamic lane assignments, which are overhead signage to give drivers advanced alert of upcoming lane closures and construction. And multimodal enhancements, which utilize various modes of travel: automobile, public transit, bicycle, walking, and take advantage of viable transportation options along the I-76 corridor, including the Schuylkill River Trail and other nearby trails. Penn DOT will work to convene a Schuylkill River Trail Master Plan Summit with our partners at the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, Montgomery County, Philadelphia, the Bicycle Coalition, and the local municipalities to identify the needs and priorities of the heavily used trail, which is used for both recreation as well as for commuting. So with all that being said, the big question is, will these initiatives work? With Philadelphia being a metro of over 6 million, I don't think it's reasonable to expect a 4-lane expressway to move vehicles quickly. So I don't expect the level of service to actually increase much, if at all. If you choose to drive to Schuylkill, you will sit in traffic, unless you catch it early on a Sunday morning. However, the issue here that can be improved is safety. Will these measures by Penn DOT improve the safety on the Schuylkill? Will it shed its infamous nickname of the Schuylkill? My opinion, I think they'll help somewhat. When driving on interstates, one of the things that leads to rear-end collisions is encountering surprise slowdown. A driver is cruising along at the typical speed and suddenly encounters slowdown and may or may not have been paying attention or react quickly enough to hit the brakes. This new signage that lowers the speed limit under certain conditions and provides advanced alert for slowdown should help quite a bit there. Overall, the whole idea behind the strategy for the roadway appears to be aimed at giving drivers as much warning and info as to upcoming conditions on the roadway as possible. I also like the proposed improvements of the major arterial roads that feed the expressway. Sometimes poorly designed arterials or lack of them can reduce traffic flow on nearby interstates, as the whole road network works in tandem as one unit. Atlanta and its non-existent arterial roadway network is a great example of this not working. On the transit front and improvements to SEPTA frequency, I'll say the jury is out on that one. Transit does indeed increase mobility and in theory should help take pressure off the roadway. However, I question the culture of the American suburban commuter and the stigma around using transit. Are the people who choose to drive this highway the same ones who would opt to use SEPTA with increased frequency? Or are those who would use SEPTA mostly composed of people who can't or don't drive anyway? We'll have to see. The good thing for Penn DOT is that Philadelphia is one of the more sluggish metros in terms of growth, which makes it easier to design transportation infrastructure for with its more stabilized, predictable future population. You don't have to worry about a massive influx of new travelers descending onto the area. How well will all of this work? We shall see. Maybe I'll head back in a few years to see if anything has changed. I'll check with the local rental car agencies to see if any of them offer tanks for a safe drive on the Schuylkill. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Have you ever driven on this ancient expressway? If so, how was your experience? Do you think any of Penn DOT's ideas will help, or is this highway just doomed to continue failing? If you live in Philly, do you use SEPTA over the Schuylkill Expressway? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one, coming soon to a town near you.